Right, for the rest of the programme, we're going to talk about Lyme disease. You've probably heard of it, but might not be quite sure what it is exactly or what happens to people who have it. It's a bacterial infection and can be caused by infected ticks and can lead to conditions such as meningitis or heart failure. If left untreated, it can even prove fatal.
Well, while it's difficult to put an official figure on the total number of British cases, it's estimated that there are 2,000 to 3,000 new cases of Lyme disease in England and Wales each year. So for the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to talk to people whose lives have been completely changed because of one small tick.
Matt Dawson, Kelly Osborne and Ben Stiller are among a number of celebrities who've suffered with the disease. And today, Shania Twain told Afternoon Edition how Lyme disease attacked her voice.
I had, problems with my voice for several years since my last tour, which was Up from the Up album. That was my last studio album. I got Lyme's disease on that tour, right at the very end of that tour, and I started losing my voice, and I didn't associate the two together. Lyme's disease is not typically something that attacks your voice. It normally attacks your major organs. I mean, it's a terrible disease. It's debilitating and can be fatal. So I'm not. I feel unfortunate as a vocalist that it attacked my vocal cords. But I feel grateful that it didn't attack my liver or, my heart or something like that. So you have to see the positive side of everything. But it's been a long road back to recovery and back to rehabilitating my voice. And so I was, now, this is why I'm calling the album. That's so much a part of, there's a lot of reasons why the album is called Now, but who I am now is definitely not who I was in many ways 15 years ago. And vocally is one of those things. I've changed so much. I'm still myself, but I've changed. And that is a lyric on my album, in fact. But I had to go through a lot of rehabilitation to be able to record this album and to be able to get on stage and sing. So it's quite a miracle that I've come this far with all of it. But so the main reason why I've been away so long as far as having a full-on recording career is because of my voice.
Shania Twain there talking about the huge impact Lyme disease has had on her. She's definitely not alone, judging by the text. Do keep them coming in. Tell us your experience. And if you've got any questions as well, do get them into us, 85058 on the text. And with us until 7 are Lindsay Wood, who has the disease, Sam Ash, whose son suffers with it. Also Lyme Disease Action's medical director, Sandra Pearson, and a doctor with a keen interest in the disease, Joshua Berkowitz. Hello to all of you.
Hello.
Hi. Let me start with you, Lindsay. I know it's been a very long process for you, all of this, but can you sum up how you got it and what happened to you?
Yeah, it was last year, February. I woke up, rolled over in bed and saw a nice, well-fed tick walking away on my pillow, which I thought was disgusting, quickly scooped up and threw it in the bin. Didn't think much more of it until after that point I started to suffer with chronic fatigue, night sweats, severe headaches, 2 stone weight loss, vomiting continuously, and a rash that appeared, which wasn't the typical bullseye rash that people talk a lot about with Lyme disease. It was just a rash. Went to the doctors, actually went to 5 different doctors before I was given a Lyme's disease test some 6 months after that initial encounter with the tick, and I am still struggling and fighting with it today.
And did you think first of all that the tick had bitten you? Did you just think it was on your bed?
I just thought it's disgusting. It's on my bed. It must have been in my head. Is what I thought. I didn't actually make the correlation at that time. It was only when a GP said, "Well, we should test for Lyme's disease," because I had all the symptoms of it. But unfortunately, at that point, that
was a long time later, though. 6 months, you said.
It was 6 months later, and even at that point, they didn't give me the antibiotics. They said, "We'll test for it, and then we will wait for the test results to come back and take it from there." Unfortunately, which was a further 2 months, of which I did not have any treatment. And like I said, I'm suffering the consequences now, really.
Yeah, what was the main reason, do you think, that it took so long?
Complete lack of awareness at my GP surgery. I live in Devon, a high-risk tick area, and none of the GPs at my surgery have completed the Royal College of General Practitioners course on Lyme disease, which is a 30-minute e-learning package which was created 2 years ago. As of February this year, only 3% of GPs in this country have completed it. It's a total lack of awareness, and it's very disturbing. Like I said, I live in a high-risk tick area, that we, hadn't made that association sooner.
Yeah, let me bring in Sandra Pearson, as I said, from the Lyme Disease Action Medical Director. Sandra, just explain...
Hi,
hello, yeah, thanks for coming on. I've so many questions, obviously, here, but can you just explain what it is exactly, the disease, what it does to you, what it was doing there to Lindsay?
Okay. Lindsay's is a fairly typical story, unfortunately. But Lyme disease, it's a bacterial infection transmitted by the bite of infected tick. Ticks are small spider-like creatures. In the UK, only about 0 to 16% are infected, but ticks occur throughout the UK, and I think the programme you're doing today is really important at raising awareness. Most cases occur in the southeast or southwest and also Scotland, and although official figures say about just over 1,000 lab-confirmed cases a year, the real figure is probably much higher than that. And if the disease is caught early, Lindsay, unfortunately, 6 months down the line, that's classed as late-stage Lyme disease. But if Lyme disease is caught in the first few weeks or months, then it's much easier to treat than if it's left to kind of get into the system.
And is it antibiotics that you treat it with at that early stage?
Yeah, at that early stage. Now, not everybody sees the rash, and Lindsay's right, not everybody gets a classic bullseye rash. And even that can be misdiagnosed as ringworm or
so it's just a red circle, is it? Or
it may be a circle, it may look like an oval. It can actually be difficult for doctors to diagnose if they haven't seen it before. But I suppose what we're trying to do as a charity, Lyme Disease Action, on our website is to say to patients, just show your doctor the website, show him the rash, show him or her what the rash looks like.
But you may not know yourself, you may not spot the rash, I suppose. You may just feel a bit tired.
Which is why raising awareness for people about ticks, and if they get the rash, is important. But for people that don't get the rash, then they might just have a flu-like illness, dizzy, fatigue, headache, be absolutely flat out on the sofa, and that's happening at a time when flu may not be prevalent in the country. So again, that's something that doctors can look out for. And the important thing is tests at that early stage are unreliable, because the tests are looking for whether the body has produced antibodies, and it may be too early for that to be positive. Mm-hmm. So that's why people say test the treat before you actually test at that early stage. But the big problem also is in late stage Lyme disease, there is good evidence showing that the tests, all Lyme disease tests currently in use, have significant limitations. That, you can probably use them to back up a diagnosis, but using them to actually refute or exclude a diagnosis in the face of someone who's had an attached tick, engorged, maybe a rash, is difficult.
Sandra, while we've got you, and I know Joshua's here as well, who's got a keen interest in treating Lyme disease. Chloe's on the line, and Chloe's just got back from a GP tonight. Hello, Chloe.
Hello.
Hi. So, Chloe, just explain what's happened to you then, and you've got some questions, haven't you?
Yes. So I was abroad, actually, when I first got my bite. And I didn't think anything of it until I started experiencing some really odd symptoms, numbness in my limbs, flu-like symptoms. I came home from being abroad and I went to my GP, and they told me that I showed them the bite that I had, and they told me that they put me on a course of antibiotics. I took the antibiotics, went back this evening for an update, still don't feel any different. and I've basically been turned away and told that there's no more I can do for me after that the antibiotics.
In what sense? Whether you recover or otherwise?
Yeah, they said that they can maybe put me on a waiting list to see a specialist, but that could take months. And I was refused a further prescription of the antibiotics I was on.
Right. Well, who wants to pick this one up, Sandra or Joshua? What advice has anybody got for Chloe?
Well, initially, I think that the antibiotic course, the initial course, particularly if it's fairly close to the timing when they had the bite, should be at least for 1 month.
Yeah.
The common wisdom amongst the cognoscenti who know about Lyme disease and who are doing the research say that anything under a month is probably taking a chance that you may not cure it. So you need a good month of a high-dose antibiotic.
And just remind us again, Chloe, what dose you've had?
So I was on doxycycline for 10 days.
Right.
Yeah, that's far too short.
That's too short.
I think.
Yeah.
Can I cut in?
Yes.
This is Sam. I think even, and Sandra can probably concur, that the current NHS guidelines say 2 to 3 weeks, but the NICE guidelines are in the process of being rewritten at the moment, and they're going to be out hopefully summertime, between summer and autumn next year.
Yeah.
So 10 days is actually not the current.
Well,
the current guidelines.
Just on that, let's finish with Chloe then for now. Chloe, look, it sounds like you need a second opinion, certainly.
Yeah,
Can I just cut in?
one more question?
Yeah, go on. Hang on, the advice is flowing thick and fast. Hang on. Who's this, Sandra?
Yeah.
Sandra, go on.
Can I just cut in? Some people, it depends on a person's immune system and on the strain of the Borrelia that they get. Some people are slow to respond to treatment. There is an evidence base for retreatment with oral antibiotics, and that's actually contained in the Public Health England referral sheet, which is on our website. If Chloe wanted to send us an email to Lyme Disease Action, we could give her that for the GP.
Okay, that's helpful.
Brilliant.
Chloe, just very quickly, another question because we've got to move on.
My doctor told me that I should look at going private, which I think is just awful. She told me if I want answers quickly, then I should go private. And is that something that you would advise I do going forward?
From Lindsay, I would say most definitely, because if I hadn't gone private, I wouldn't be getting the treatment that I'm having now. It angers me that I had to do that, paying my taxes and never having to use the NHS before, but it's going private that's got me back up and on my feet.
So there we are, principles to one side, Chloe, for your own personal good. Listen, hope you get it sorted.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chloe. Joshua, I'll come to you in a second. I just want to speak to Sam, though. Hello, Sam, again.
Hi.
So I know your son has suffered with Lyme disease. Just briefly tell us your story.
Yeah, terribly. He was bitten in our local park in Windsor, just in the deer park, when he was 9. He's just turned 13 now, but we picked the tick off his arm. I had no idea that there was a disease in the UK that could disable you. He had a bullseye or erythema migrans, a bullseye rash on his arm about 3 weeks later, and didn't equate the two. We had no knowledge at all, so that went, we didn't take him to the doctors, it didn't hurt, and we remarked on how it was like a target, thought it was a mosquito bite, actually, which is what Matt Dawson's GP thought his was. And it was just a slow spiral downward, really, over the next 18 months. He ended up having a bone tumour taken out where at the site of the bite, the March the following year. And it was about 18 months later that I was just absolutely desperate. I mean, he was bedbound, he was not wanting to go on living. This is what it felt like. He was light and sound sensitive. He had Alzheimer's type symptoms. He couldn't finish a sentence, and just this terrible pain and fatigue. I mean, it's just. I said to somebody the other day, the only person I've ever seen that is just before we lost my dad, unfortunately, a few years ago. I mean, it was just really frightening for everybody. And as with Lindsay, unfortunately, we've had to go privately. I mean, our consultants on the NHS have all been supportive, but really their hands are tied with treatment for late diagnosed or late stage Lyme disease. So what I'm going to go to Joshua in a sec, who's specialist in this, but what treatment did he have and how's it panned out? Well, at the moment, we went first of all to a private clinic in the UK, and they got him out of bed and back to school part-time. We stopped the antibiotics and he relapsed. So we then decided, having practically done a degree in Lyme disease the last 3 or 4 years now and been to 8 conferences and sort of spoke. You have to find out so much about it because there's little knowledge about it, unfortunately, within the NHS. And that's not a criticism of the NHS, but I agree with Lindsay that people need to do the e-learning course as a start. So we've been fundraising, just remortgaged the house, and actually we're now seeing a specialist in Washington. I mean, it's been life-changing. So he's been ill for 4 years, and they do a different, I don't want to sort of go into too much about his treatment, but a different combination. And we use just a doxycycline as a front line, which one of the scientists who's looking at, researching late diagnosed says it's the doxycycline is like mowing the lawn and taking the top off a weed, but it just comes back again because there's different forms of the bacteria within the body.
It's so expensive, isn't it? I was just reading one text saying my GP recognised a tick bite, chose not to give me antibiotics. I've been really ill for 6.5 years. I was going to be the head of the school. I haven't worked since 2011. It's been disgusting. We've spent £50,000 plus now on medication. And Joshua Berkowitz, you run a private clinic, don't you? Why is it so expensive to treat this?
It's not the medication which is expensive. Doxycycline, for example, costs pennies per capsule. I think it's really the time that doctors have to devote to it, and intravenous therapies may be given. And the tests are expensive, especially when you're doing a broad spectrum of tests to not only test for one bacteria, but for several bacteria, and also to test for a variety of viruses that may also come in the collection that any particular individual gets.
Yeah, and
it shouldn't. I agree with you, though. It shouldn't be that expensive, and I'm really saddened when I hear that people have got to mortgage their homes in order to get some decent treatment.
Sorry, no, I don't want to interrupt.
No, I'm just saying that it really does sadden me because it shouldn't be so expensive.
Go on, Sam.
The majority of our costs obviously are travelling abroad, travelling and accommodation. We had all the tests done initially. Once I stumbled by pure fluke across a picture of a bullseye rash online, and all the cards fell into place and knew that's what the matter was with him. He tested negative initially on the NHS, unfortunately, but he had bullseye rash, a bone tumour at the bite site, and a tick box. I mean, I know Sandra, hi Sandra, and a tick box of every single Lyme symptom possible and terrible neurological. So we then paid a lot of money at the time, yes, and sent the tests were expensive, and we had positives from 3 labs to one in Germany.
Sam, just on that subject of the test, this one's in from Debbie. It says, I've had Lyme disease 25 years and I've been given numerous incorrect diagnoses. The NHS test was negative. Most people receive a similar result, but it's affected my whole body and I'm in constant pain with no energy. And Debbie's now being treated in the US as well. So that's an issue, isn't it, with as far as misdiagnosis is concerned?
Can I come in here as well? I agree with Joshua that the treatment shouldn't be expensive, and what happens as well is that patients end up going from specialist to specialist in the NHS, and it's costing the NHS money, it's costing people money in lost earnings, children may not get to school, people are remortgaging their houses. There's actually a very, very limited evidence base, even for antibiotic treatment in late-stage Lyme. There's evidence that it does work, but a proportion of people, maybe 40 to 50%, are left with residual symptoms. There is evidence scientifically that the bacteria can persist beyond antibiotic treatment, even intravenous treatment, but none of the tests at the moment actually show for an individual patient whether it might be low-grade persistent infection or an immune problem. There's no doubt that Borrelia causes havoc with the immune system, or tissue damage.
And why are so few GPs doing this course that Lindsay was mentioning? Only 3% of GPs doing it.
I mean, I actually helped co-author that course, so thank you for the plug, Lindsay.
But why aren't they doing it?
I don't know. I mean, GPs are very busy people. As yet, Lyme disease is becoming more common, and there's been a lot of media attention this year, which is good. But it's dwarfed by things like obesity and diabetes, and these things are high on the NHS and public health radar. Lyme disease doesn't satisfy the criteria to be a rare disease for special NHS funding, nor is it common enough to kind of compete with other things. And then Ebola came along and it went on the back burner for a year.
Just
and then
very quickly, because we're about to finish, what would be your top tip for somebody who thinks they may have it? What should be the first thing they do?
Read up, be tick aware, look, if you want to use the information with our leaflets or on the website, that's Lyme Disease Action, to help your GP make that diagnosis. And if you really think it's Lyme, don't give up.
Okay, Sandra, thank you. Sam and Lindsay, thank you. Good luck going forward. And Joshua, thank you as well. Thanks so much for all your texts. Sorry we couldn't read a lot of them out, but they've been very, very moving and very detailed. And a lot of people are obviously suffering with Lyme disease out there. Hope it's been useful the last half hour or so.